Benny Neil podcast. This is Benny.
And this is Neil.
How you doing, Neil?
Doing pretty decent. A bit tired. Rain
You said that the
is.
last podcast.
Yeah, I'm always tired. I'm always tired. I'm grinding, grinding. Anyway, let's get into it.
What are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about is the unrest in Hong Kong. Been a lot of news out of Hong Kong recently. We're just going to talk a little bit about the history, the history of China, the region, a little bit about why things are the way they are with the territory, Taiwan, etc., and briefly how we got here today. And again, we aren't historians, so this will be a very, very quick and dirty history.
Quick and dirty. That's what I like. Quick and dirty.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to get started, or should I get started with this?
So you should let's start with Benny, and then I'll follow up later on.
All right. So, as some people hopefully should know, they may not know. I came across someone that wasn't really aware what was going on. There have been pretty big, huge mass protests since I think June of this year. So about 2 months ago. We're in the final week of August here, but I think they've been going on since around the beginning of June. So let's take a look at why these protests have happened. And I think before we take a look at that, we need to understand what exactly Hong Kong is in terms of the type of territory. So this goes all the way back to the 1800s, to the first Opium War, which was a war between the UK and China. Pretty much what was going on in the 17th and 18th centuries. The demand for Chinese goods in Europe created a trade imbalance between the
Isn't that what we are hearing now?
Surplus deficit. But I mean, is that really a bad thing?
What are the kids doing today? Are they? What is it now? No opium being done, right? No, kids are doing the opium at these music festivals. What is opium? All right. Anyway, opium. What is opium, Benny? This is a very an unknown substance. I don't think today. I think the in thing today is CBD. I'm gonna be trying some of that.
I mean, opium. Opium is the. I think it's pretty much heroin. Opium is a type of flower, which is essentially heroin is made out of, and a lot of these. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the opioid. Is it opioid?
Yeah, opioid crisis. Yeah, so all related. So I looked up. We're right here. Technically, opium is a reddish brown, heavy scented, addictive drug prepared from the juice of the opium poppy. So yes, it's from the juices of the plant. There.
So I haven't tried. Have you?
No.
Have you been dipping into the?
I've never tried the opium. Anyway, continuing. So the Opium War. Trade balance. Sorry,
yeah. So to counter this imbalance of trade, the British East India Company began to grow opium in India and smuggled it into China illegally. Now, I've heard a lot about this British East India Company. I've heard they've done a lot of bad things. I personally have yet to done the research onto why this is such an alleged stain on history. Do you know anything about the British East India Company?
I remember Mr. I don't want to say the name, but I remember a certain professor in high school talking about the British East India Company, but apart from that, I know they dealt in spices. This just goes to show how poor the school system is in America. No. The school system.
They're Indian, so they dealt in spices.
No, they're British. It was just called the East India Company. It's a British company, and they dealt in that area of the world, so they called it the British East India Company. Um,
We need to get a Jamie.
yes, so you can look that up. But
Yeah.
no, so yeah, so it's just that's what it is, uh, and yeah, it's just a company. And so I know they did a lot of things, trading in spices and stuff like that. And they did some shady stuff, but I don't remember. Again, this is just not my fault. This is a failure of the American education system. Continuing on.
Yeah, I don't. It's nothing. It's not our fault. Definitely not our
Okay,
fault.
continue. So,
All right. So the influx of narcotics reversed the Chinese trade surplus. It also drained the economy of silver and increased the numbers of opium addicts inside the country. Which I don't know if you jumped to the conclusion, but that's not a good. It's
isn't
not a good
that
thing.
that as we talk about it, isn't that the same exact thing that is happening right now? Because in addition to the opioid crisis, right, we have fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid. If I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, rather, it's a synthetic opioid, much of which is coming in from China. So
I've heard that.
this is almost deja vu here. It's just a different name. Now we're from opium was first, and now opium with England, and now it's fentanyl with China with us. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's pills instead of the
yeah,
actual smoking. So they are
ramping it up.
getting vengeance.
Yes.
So pretty much, I think instead of just legalizing and taxing the opium, they just stopped trading it, and the UK wasn't quite happy
Mm.
about that, especially when eventually led to the
So,
confiscation
so
of the
wait, was the
supplies.
opium going from England to China, or was it the other way around?
What was going, I think India or the UK was picking it in India, manufacturing it, and then
Ah, I
sending
see.
it to China. But at that time, India was a colony
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
the UK, so I mean, potato, potato. Yeah, you could
Yeah,
say it's from
no.
the UK.
Okay.
Um, so then China decided to block it, and as you can imagine, they were not happy about that. And then also the some of the opium was confiscated, about 1,200 tons, or 2.66 million pounds.
Mm-mm.
To our metric system listeners, you guys are gonna have to look that up because
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
that off the top of my head. So the Queen was not happy, so they pretty much attacked, and the British Empire, or the naval army at that time, being in hack mode, they wrecked face, and they won. And essentially, among other things, Hong Kong, or what is known as Hong Kong now, the Hong Kong Islands became part of the British Empire.
Oh, yeah, they had a treaty, Treaty of Nanking, I believe, yeah. Which ceded Hong Kong to the British Empire. So there was another Opium War, was there not? One after the first one. Um,
Yeah, I think the main outcome of that, just ignoring some of the minor details about what it was about, essentially they got another part called, and excuse my lack of being able to pronounce Chinese cities, words, etc. Kowloon, which is now the urban part of Hong Kong. So essentially, it grew that territory that they already owned of Hong Kong.
yes, yes, yes. So they kept taking.
Yeah,
Okay, so they had it. I mean, they had a 99-year lease on Hong Kong, the British.
yeah. I think that
Um,
started in 1898.
yeah, and I read a little bit about so, a lot of people online or just in the Western world are saying like, oh, why did Britain give Hong Kong back and blah blah blah, and
I'm
it was
asking
based
that.
what?
I've asked that.
Yeah, and so I kind of read a little bit about this, and let me see if I remember. Basically, paraphrasing, and it came down to the fact that I think it was Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. There was that.
Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, they were already talking about like, oh, why don't we just keep it or whatever. Some people were saying that, but by that time, like China had already been growing and strengthening in the region, and I think it just came down to whether it was worth it for England, who now was no longer like a key player in the area militarily. Like, would it be worth it to start a major war with China? Because I believe it was, I forget which Chinese leader basically said, like, if we really wanted to, we could overrun Hong Kong in like a day and like just crush you. And so I think it was just decided that it would be better to just give Hong Kong back and
Mm.
not risk like go. It wasn't worth it, basically the fight for Hong Kong. It was complicated, but yeah, that was the gist. So anyway, they gave Hong Kong back.
When
Um,
was that?
1997. They gave it back, and they were supposed to have a 50-year transitional period. So I think what is it till 2047, where Hong Kong was still supposed to retain a lot of their democratic uh, freedoms and things like that before officially being assimilated back into the mainland. Um, and that's why you keep hearing a lot of the one country, two systems, um, expression being stated, because
Mm.
Hong Kong is more of a democratic, territory. But I mean, and the reason why. So why don't we get into what's happening now and some in the extradition bill, how that started, um, and what led to today. So now that we know a little bit about Hong Kong and how it was created, we can start talking about more current events.
So this takes us back to about Valentine's Day, 2018. A Hong Kong couple in their early 20s. They went on a vacation to Taiwan. Um, they're just a happy couple. The girl, I think, one of her last, and you could tell this story is going to get kind of grim when I start off saying one of her last social media post was of her being very, quote, gleeful before the trip, saying that she was happy that her boyfriend said, quote, she was her first and last girlfriend. So this guy, he found true love, allegedly.
Mm, mm,
And the following series of events that we're going to be talking about is going to be all according to the boyfriend. So, did this actually happen? We don't really know. This is the quote official story. So they purchased a pink piece of luggage from the night market in Taiwan that night, and then they went back to their whatever they were staying at, hotel or Airbnb, whatever. And they somehow got into an argument about how to pack the luggage. I can't understand how that
well, I shouldn't be laughing.
how that would start an argument, but they got into an argument about that. And allegedly, this I think this was on the South China Post. The reported on the details, which is one of the very few websites online currently reporting about the this alleged story that the boyfriend is telling. That escalated into a fight. They made up. They had sex. This is quoting the article, and then they got into another fight, and then it was somehow
Mm-hmm.
revealed that the girl was 5 weeks pregnant.
Mm,
Now, according to this same article from the South China Post, the relationship had started back and around, I want to say somewhere in September or fall. And if you're a mathematician, you can deduce that that period of dating is longer than 5 weeks, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it appears that she cheated, and the child
She.
wasn't the boyfriend's. Now, I find it a little bit interesting that they didn't straight up say in the article that the boyfriend cheated, which if
You
they
mean the
had,
girlfriend?
yeah, the girlfriend, they didn't explicitly say that she cheated. And wouldn't in the U.S. that actually be classified as a what is it, a crime of passion? Is it?
I mean, I'm I'm not a lawyer, but I think there are certain instances where crimes of passion where you're just so enraged that you do something, and they kind of I think you can get a bit of I don't want to say leniency, but just a bit of that. Well, that's what it is, right? Leniency on the sentencing. Like for example, there was a guy, famous video. You can see it on YouTube. A guy who his son, who he was sending to this karate class. Have you seen this? So his son, he was like 8, and between the ages of like 8 and 11 or something, I think his son was being like molested by the karate
What the
teacher.
fuck?
Yeah, and so basically, this was like a long time ago, on decades, and then so anyway, when the police were transporting that guy because he got arrested and caught, and they were like transporting him somewhere like through the airport. And so the father was pretending to be on the phone, like he was like pretending to be in a phone booth. And when the cops walked by, and this was all filmed by the way, like on the news cameras because it was a huge story, the dad just turned around and like shot the guy in the head and like killed him, like for, and then he only ended up getting like I think he got like suspended sentence and like probation for like 5 years. That was all he got. So he like didn't even go to jail because he was just so enraged. But that was Texas, I believe. So that's where I don't think they look too kindly on child molesters.
They
So
don't. They don't. Texas seems to be pretty lenient. What was that other the other case about the illegal immigrants? Were they illegal immigrants? Or am I just talking trash? Are they the people that broke into the neighbor's house?
I don't know. I don't know about that. But I heard there was a guy. I don't know if he was illegal, but I think he was. By the way, I don't know. I just feel like there's nothing wrong. I mean, we're just being objective here. Like, if they're not in the country legally, right, then they should be. I mean, it's illegal. That's the term. Like, they're illegally present. So that's why we're saying that. I know we're going to get labeled as alt right and racist, and we hate it.
Extremely all right.
We hate everyone. We hate immigrants now. But anyway, I think he was an illegal immigrant. Or he was here illegally, and I think he was like 12. He was raping or like trying to rape this guy's like daughter. I think she was like 10, and this was in like the shed in the back. And I don't know how the dad found out. Maybe he heard her or something, but he like beat the guy to death like with his
Oh,
hands. And he just fucking like beat the shit out of him, and that guy also like didn't go to jail, and that
okay.
was also in Texas. So I mean, it
That,
seems like they're doing things right there in
oh,
Texas.
that's actually not the case. I was more alleging to the kind of lax laws at Texas. Yeah, now that I'm rethinking about it, so I had a hui chic, which is kind of like a company dinner before reporting this podcast, and I have a IPA with me right now. So
Excellent,
my
excellent,
apologies
excellent.
if things don't
Just
sound quite. Yeah.
get on with it. It
Okay.
sounds fine.
Okay. So no, I was actually referring to that case, which I think is on YouTube, of the two people that broke into some guy's neighbor's house. And Texas has a law where if somebody tells you to protect their house and then
I'm
people
gonna go to
break
the
into
bathroom
that
real quick.
house,
I'll be right
then
back.
already
No,
we're like
I'll
three
be
minutes in.
I'll be right back.
All right.
2 minutes.
All right, oh, yeah, Ron. Essentially, what had happened was that American citizens, it doesn't matter of their nationality or their legality, of course, they broke into a neighbor's house that neighbor had told his neighbor to protect. And Texas has a law where if somebody tells you to protect their house and somebody breaks into their house, you are able to protect the house, even if that involves murdering the people breaking and entering. So, and you can look it up on YouTube. They have the 911 video of pretty much this guy calling in saying that, hey, someone's breaking into my neighbor's house. You guys need to get here. And they're like, okay, we're on the way. And he's like, no, 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 they're breaking in now. We gotta, they're gonna get away. They're gonna get away. And the police tell them like, no, no, don't do anything. Just we'll be there. And he's like, no, I gotta do it. I gotta do it.
Yeah.
And then they just run out, or he runs
What?
out with a gun, shotgun, and kills both of the people that are breaking and entering into that. It's pretty crazy. And I think that guy got off. He wasn't sentenced to anything, right?
I haven't been here for the last 2 minutes. What do you mean, right? I don't even know what you were talking about.
The YouTube video of the guy killing the 2 people that broke into his neighbor's house.
I don't know. But
okay.
anyway,
according to Wikipedia, in some jurisdiction, a successful crime of passion defense may result in a conviction for manslaughter or second-degree murder instead of first-degree murder.
That's in America, though, right? I mean, this is Asia, so
this is Wikipedia, and they're not quoting. This is not a specific country's law.
Just about,
in general, the idea behind a successful crime of passion. Anyway, we're getting really far away from our point, so let's reel us back in. Let's see what we're talking about. So they got in another fight. It was revealed that she was 5 weeks pregnant. Allegedly, it was the ex-boyfriend who, based on the timeline given by the current boyfriend, she cheated on.
Have you seen the boyfriend, by the way? I think we should just. He looks like a murderer. Like this guy looks like he's mentally unstable. When you see a picture of this guy, you don't think so? I think he looks unhinged. This guy.
Let me tell you, Neil. I'm no playboy. All right, I'm not a playboy, but I'm certainly not a cuck. And
oh my god,
that's not a derogatory term. If I said something along the lines of "This is my first and last girlfriend," I think I meant I would nominate this guy for Cuck of the Year. And
wait, it's hold on. Actually, tell me why. Why is he Cuck of the Year?
I mean, first of all, you're 19 years old. You don't know shit. Let's just play it simple. You don't know shit at 19 years old, and if you've never dated someone before, then you definitely don't know. You don't know anything. You don't know what you like. You don't know what the relationship is going to evolve into. You dated someone for a few months and you're going to get married. This is the year 2019, my friend. There are apps like Tinder and
which aren't very good. But yes,
that's a whole nother can of worms.
Maybe that's a good idea for another episode. We can talk about that scene here in Asia. I know there are many weeaboos, many people back home listening. They want to come here. They want to.
What's a weeaboo?
I think we covered that term.
That was the unreleased episode 0. Which, if this podcast becomes very popular, we will
maybe
release
someday. It depends on you guys. You can let us know at Benny and Neil Twitter at Benny and Neil.
The Twitter's back up, by the way.
We were silent.
Can't be silent. Hashtag can't be silent.
We were silent. We're not even out there yet. And before we even made our rise, they tried to finish us. But we're back. So find us there.
That might have been because of a user error. But
anyway, we're getting real distracted tonight. But anyway, I found.
We wanted to. This is a comment. I mean, we're talking about politics.
Why is he?
We're talking about current issues.
Why is he the Cuck of the Year?
First and foremost, we are this is a comedy program. We're comedians. Comedians telling the news.
Anyway, I don't know, but we're amateur comedians.
I don't think someone who has a first girlfriend has any right to say that they're in true love. They have no right. They have zero clue. This guy, he doesn't look very attractive. And this is the thing. Let me tell you.
Tell us.
If you're thinking about coming to Asia, it's insane because in the West, and I'm sorry if you're a female listening to this, but in the West, females have lost almost all sense of their feminine traits.
This is we're really getting off the rails, but I think all I'll say is I've noticed. I think it's good. I think it's sometimes it's good they've been trying to put more like diversity in Hollywood and on Netflix and stuff. It's really visible. I think it's good in some ways, but I noticed the other day I was watching a show with a friend of ours, and I noticed that in a lot of these Netflix shows they have these female characters, and it seems like they go out of their way to make them like as non-feminine, like as how would I even put this?
Disgusting.
No, no, but they try to like they give them very short hair, which is fine. But like they'll do other things like and to try to make them like as non-feminine as possible. And I don't know, it just seems like a concerted effort out of the West. It's kind of weird. And but anyway, yeah. But anyway, yeah. What were you gonna say? You were gonna say that.
The level of femininity, is that the right word?
I mean, it comes through. I get it. I get what you're trying to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Femininity
But anyway,
of
why is this?
women here is so high, and the women are so attractive that it brings the average up so much that you'll have these beautiful girls that if they went to the U.S., they'd be considered as like seven, eights, and nines. And then here, because there's just so many of them, these like ugly fools can date them. So this guy, he's not very attractive. He has like a big ass mole on his like face right under his nose.
I mean,
I'm
he looks.
sorry. He would not be able to get a girlfriend in the US, especially.
Dude, if this guy in the U.S., we've seen guys in the U.S. like this in university, like they were the guys who just were weird. I this guy looks like he would be a school shooter. Like I'm not trying to be. I mean, it's a very sensitive topic, but this guy, people talk about you can't judge a book by its cover, and maybe that's true. But sometimes when you get a bad feeling, you look at someone, and this guy, he looks like that. He gives you the heebie-jeebies when you look at him because he just looks unstable. But anyway, why did he win that award from you?
No, I told you because
Oh,
I
yes,
mean,
because he's
his
19.
first your first girlfriend is gonna say his last year. I mean, he's definitely hitting above his weight. So I mean, I could see if you wanted to call in right there. I wouldn't blame him considering. But I mean, it's kind of clear why she was willing to date this fool because she secretly knew, or at some point she knew that she was freaking pregnant with her
It's
ex
fucked
man's
up.
fool. But we're
So
getting like,
she was going to try to. I wonder if he had a decent job, maybe something like that. But we're getting way off topic. Let's go back.
yeah, I don't want to. We're
I
gonna
don't
be
even
definitely
remember what we were going to talk about.
attacked as
It's
fucking
no, but I mean,
sexist and whatnot. But it is definitely you can't.
why is
It is a serious an issue that with some women they get pregnant with some other fool's child, and then they date someone else, and then I think one of the worst things in the world as a male is to raise a child who you think is your own kin, and in actuality
I'd be
it's not.
I'd be
I think
devastated. I'd be devastated. How could you even do that? Like live that lie, like as the mother, like that's just insane. But anyway,
okay, yeah.
yeah. So what were we talking about before?
Let's
Oh, let me tell you
we're
this.
talking. Okay,
Back to what you were talking about, Crown of Passion earlier. So I did do some quick Google foo, and I found that this is from a website. You know what? We're not claiming to be legal experts here, so if you guys want to correct us, you can go ahead and do that. We are more than willing to have
at Betty and Neil.
a debate at Twitter handle Benny and Neil. You can write us
We're
there.
gonna be on minds.com. We're gonna make an account. Do it.
Minds.com.
Hit us up there.
You could tell us
Send
whatever
us a
you want.
letter.
Yes. So this is from lawbank.com/Taiwan. This is in the criminal code of the Republic of China. And it says in Chapter 23, offenses of causing injury, Article 279, Chapter 23, a person who acted in the heat of passion caused by legally adequate provocation, thereupon commits an offense specified in one of the two preceding articles shall be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 2 years, or a fine of not more than 1,000 yuan. If death results from the commission of such an offense, like this guy, because he killed his girlfriend, he shall be sentenced to
Spoilers.
what?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Spoiler alert.
we'll hear about that. So, yeah, sorry guys, he killed her. But So he shall be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 5 years. So apparently, I mean, this guy could get a max of 5 years. I mean, unless
You
they,
sure you're not a lawyer?
uh,
Because that sounded pretty legal to me. It
yeah.
sounded pretty legit.
I
All
mean,
right, so
what,
allegedly, what had happened is that they got the
wait, can
the
I just
fight.
this one?
Yeah, you finished that.
They have another one too. Look at this. It just happens to be randomly near. Article 257, Chapter 20, offenses relating to opium. A person who sells or transports opium shall be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 7 years. Wow. So you can get longer for selling opium than killing someone? That's insane. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and then that will be a separate podcast issue about how the murder laws in definitely Korea, definitely Japan, possibly Taiwan as well. They're just completely backwards.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Um, I mean, it's so crazy that even if you kill someone while you're drunk, you can say that like you'll get a lighter sentence just because you're drunk.
Yeah,
Like
it's bizarre. We see
that you
legal.
wanna.
I mean, at least, we're going off topic here, but I think it's good because we're coming up with plenty of episodes. I mean, just different content to talk about because, I mean, we love Asia.
Is that some tea I hear you brewing over there?
Decaf coffee. I'm trying to finish this coffee. I have a lot of.
Okay.
Anyway, continue. Yeah, so we have a lot of.
All
There's
right.
a lot in Asia to talk about. We complain. You may hear us complain, but it's still a lot better than back home. So I love Asia.
And if you have complaints, please let us know at hashtag
Yeah,
betting news.
complain. We want to hear it anyway.
Okay, let's recap real quick and let's get back on topic. This is about Hong Kong. So they went on a vacation. They're Hong Kongese. They went on vacation in Taiwan. They got into a fight. It was allegedly revealed that she was 5 weeks pregnant with a child that was her ex-boyfriend's. Her boyfriend got upset. Allegedly, she also showed him a video of her and her ex having
Which
sex. I don't know.
doesn't that sound kind of cool? I mean, why would she do that?
Maybe he knew about this crime of passion, so he was trying to get off on that to kind of make it seem like
It's funny.
this was a crime of passion. But anyway, allegedly she showed him a picture of her and her ex-boyfriend having sex. I don't know why she even have that video. And then he got upset. He bashed her head against the wall and strangled her to death.
I mean, we're not laughing at what's going on. I mean, this is terrible, but I just can't.
I can't even imagine doing something like that.
I think it's like, I'm just shy. It's so insane, like, to this story. Like, I mean, I personally, I think he's fucking full of shit. I don't think she showed him a video of her and her boyfriend. What person would do that? Like, what would be the only response? Like, like, why would she do that? Let me just show him this photo to prove that you're not the father. Like, it doesn't make sense. I think he's making that up, but I mean, I can't understand how someone can get this enraged. I mean, you and I and a good friend of ours, we all enjoy.
We're gonna have to blank that name out. So if you're a blank, just
No, we're not.
there.
I mean, there's many people named that. It's a common name. But anyway, yeah,
So
we get angry, but I can never. I mean, this is outrageous. But continuing.
so he strangled her to death, and then he stuffed her body into that same pink luggage, and then he dropped it off on the outskirts of Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan. He took her ATM card, withdrew about $600 US, of course, in local currency from Taiwan. Went back to Hong Kong. Her father, was like, "What the hell? Where's my daughter?" I don't even think they knew that he was dating. She was dating this fool. He went to the police, and then they didn't catch this fool until this genius
She went to the
again
police.
withdrew more money. No.
Oh,
He didn't go to the father went to the police. The boyfriend who killed her, he used her bank card again in Hong Kong to withdraw about another $1,000.
This guy's obviously not winning any what do you call it?
Darwin Award.
He's not getting it. No, not that. He's definitely not a member of Mensa. This guy. Are you familiar with Mensa?
What's Mensa?
It's just like it's some organization of like the insanely intelligent. It's like it's a high IQ society. That's what it is.
Well, he was promptly arrested and eventually confessed. Now, here's where things get a little bit sticky, and this is where the real trouble gets started. Although they're both from Hong Kong, because the actual murder happened in Taiwan. And this is something I didn't know until I did some research about this topic, was that in the U.S., if you kill a U.S. citizen, even though it's not in the U.S. where the murder took place, it's still a crime in the U.S.
Mm.
So if I flew to Japan, killed you,
Hmm.
and then went back to the U.S., or I mean, Korea and the U.S. has extradition laws in place. Regardless if I went back to the U.S. or not, I would be that would be a crime according to U.S. law, and then I would get tried. But they don't have that type of agreement, so essentially they can't charge this fool for murder unless he's actually in Taiwan, which is where we get the
Hmm.
problem here,
Yes.
is
So.
because although Taiwan has its own functioning government and military, China, mainland China, doesn't consider Taiwan a sovereign country.
Yes. So.
They consider that part of China, and therefore neither does Hong Kong, because now, even though Hong Kong is in the transitionary period with China, they're still technically China, according to China.
Well, we're skipping over some stuff. So basically, I think what Benny is trying to say here is that there's no extradition treaty in place between Hong Kong. I mean, between Taiwan and Hong Kong. So Taiwan asked Hong Kong. They requested of Hong Kong a piece of legislation or a treaty, like an extradition treaty. They said, "Hey, we want this guy. Can you send him back? I mean, we need to make this, the agreement with you." And I think Hong Kong was going to do it. And I don't know if they did it actually. I don't even know since
They
this
didn't do it,
part of the story got overshadowed. No, they didn't. Okay.
allegedly.
Anyway, when China, the mainland China, Mr. Z, heard of this, he was like, "Whoa, we want on in on this too. We want an extradition treaty of ourselves. You can't give it to Taiwan and not give it to us." And so basically, it was like, "Oh, we want it too." And then that's how the extradition law between China, Hong Kong, and mainland China was introduced. And that is kind of how we got to this last, 12 weeks now, I think we're on, of continuous protests. But the whole Taiwan thing, the whole this murder, this whole basically devolving, of Hong Kong into madness that has been going on over the last few months, all being started by this guy murdering his girlfriend. I didn't even know that until maybe like last week. Because we've just been seeing the Hong Kong protests, but we didn't know the backstory. So that's why we wanted to get in, here and just give a quick, history of of how we got here.
Well, pretty much, there were some protests in Hong Kong in 2014. Essentially, what happened was that here's a little piece of history of the democratic development in Hong Kong since the this transitionary period had started. Even though it's the one country, two systems principle, which allows Hong Kong to govern their own special land, which is what Hong Kong calls it, or special. It's a quote special territory. They can't handle foreign relations and military, and I think this falls under foreign relations because that's what an extradition is. An extradition law is. Um, and pretty much in 2014, they created a new law which allows, essentially, I think before, like up until 2012, Hong Kong did have democratic elections. However, from 2014, there was a new law in place that Hong Kong had to accept an electoral process for the chief executive, which I guess is their term for president or prime minister or whatever. So from 2017, China, which would pretty much choose three candidates. So they would be pre-approved by Beijing, and then the people would be allowed to vote amongst those three. And as if you can guess, if Beijing chose those candidates, they would definitely be pro mainland candidates. So they would be in favor for whatever law that took any democratic rights away from Hong Kong and gave mainland the power.
Mm.
So the current executive officer is someone by the name of Carrie Lam. Now,
Lamb.
allegedly, she claims that she was acting on her own accord based on letters she received from the victim's parents. This is the murdered girlfriend's parents saying that they want to receive justice because this boyfriend that murdered her, or allegedly murdered her, I guess, if we're going by the U.S. definition of who's guilty and who's just a suspect. The suspected murderer was only tried for, quote, money laundering, and that's for withdrawing
He
money
wasn't
with her
even.
bank
Wait,
account.
wait, wait, wait. He wasn't. This was in Hong Kong, or was he tried for
It was in
that?
Hong Kong. No, 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 this
Oh,
was in
so,
Hong Kong.
so
Yes.
because he didn't murder her in Hong Kong, they didn't even try him.
Well,
That's
they
what.
couldn't,
Oh, that's. Oh,
essentially.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I see.
So he
Where
got
is this
tried
guy?
for,
Where is this guy? Has anyone heard of where this guy is? Is he
he's in Hong Kong,
is he in
allegedly.
jail? Like, I mean, what,
Yeah, he's in jail. So he
they
got
should be
sentenced for,
they should be
I,
torturing
I
that guy, not the other
yeah,
guy, which we'll
it
get
was.
into later.
We'll get to that. Yeah, apparently he was sent. It was, I want to say 29 months, but it might have been 24. Anyway, it was around 2 years he was sentenced, and I guess if he has good behavior, he get out
That's
even
insane.
quicker. But that's because they can only try him for money laundering because they don't have these laws in place.
I hope he gets
Because
killed. Look. Just for the record, I don't care what people say. You know, they want to complain. You can do it at Benny and Neil on Twitter. But this guy, I don't believe someone who murdered someone else should be allowed back into society with non-murderers after 2 years. Like I feel like if you murdered someone, you go back, you should be like old and frail so that you can no longer possibly murder someone else. This guy, I hope the dad gets him. I hope he fucking catches his ass. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and there are allegations floating around that Taiwan tried to communicate with Hong Kong police, and Hong Kong kind of ignored them until it got to this point of introducing this bill. And if Hong Kong really wanted to send this fool back, like they can find a way to send this fool back without getting mainland involved.
Mm.
But
It's Carrie
I
Lam. I hear she's a shill for China. I think she's
well,
been.
she was pre-approved
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Beijing.
Hmm.
And I interviewed one of my buddies who lives in Hong Kong right now, and she is essentially a leader that she'll read what people write her allegedly, but she kind of like acts like an Asian mom in her own family, so it doesn't really matter what the people say. It's kind of like if she wants to do something, she's gonna do it.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
So why don't you? Because I'm getting to the point where I need to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
as well. Why don't you get into the
So
some of the fears that Hong Kongese people have, or Hong Kongers, which I think they're going as now, have with China, kind of mainland China, uh, making the calls.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure, sure. So China, I mean, for anyone in the West, which by the way, I think that it's important to note that just as a side note, there are many ways that China, mainland China, is employing propaganda and just information tactics against those in the West to kind of change our perception of China. I mean, this goes deep into like they are running, hmm, they're running plays. I mean, these people, they have, mainland Chinese have, I think it's called the Confucius Society or something like that, where they have these organizations on university campuses where they, slowly spread, Chinese propaganda. Just various, online attacks and things like that, similar to Russia, with bots and things like that. It's crazy, some of the stuff they do. But um, and again, this is coming from a Western perspective. I mean, who knows? Allegedly, I haven't seen, the camps or whatever that are filled with millions of Muslims in China, in Eastern or Western China, rather. but they're supposedly there. But mainly, the Hong Kongers are used to a democratic society, right? They're used to having laws. They're used to being able to say what they want for the most part. I get the sense that they're used to being just, in general, far more free than people would be in China. And seeing as how they are so close to China, they probably have relatives that go back and forth or speak Mandarin as well as Cantonese, which is the dialect that's spoken in Hong Kong. I mean, these people see how life is in China on the mainland, and they don't want that for themselves, right? So, um, ultimately, I don't know if they have a leg to stand on, because in 2047, right, there's nothing anyone can do. By that time, China will may very well be like the world power if America continues on the way that it's going. But when they kind of just want to remain autonomous until that 2047 time period, so they have a five demands basically to try to keep their their democracy, the one country, two systems. And I'm trying to remember what those were. I had a
I'm gonna
list.
pull those up real quick.
Yeah, there's a list of five demands. Um, I heard them. I don't. Do you have those, Benny?
No, did you talk about the bookseller and the billionaire?
No. So basically, I've basically been saying, just talking about why Hong Kong wants to remain autonomous, basically not autonomous, but just keep their democratic norm status quo until 2047. And I talked about how, many people in Hong Kong have relatives that live on the mainland. They go back and forth. They speak Mandarin as well as Cantonese. They see how things are in China, massive security state, things like that, and they don't want that for themselves in Hong Kong. And so this is kind of why they have continued um, with what they're doing. And I do have the five demands here. So the first demand is the complete withdrawal of the proposed extradition bill, because the extradition bill, as I understand it, hasn't been fully withdrawn. It's just been kind of shelved for now. I think what Carrie Lam, as a shill of the mainland, is trying to do is she's going to wait until the protests die down, and then she's going to secretly try to like pass it on the back end. Um,
I heard that she kind of completely postponed and withdrew that.
she
So
she she withdrew because
apparently, what they were going to say that they said that they're withdrawing that, and she apologized
I don't know, but
for pushing it,
they
and
have five withdrawals with demands, though, five demands, and they want all of them to be met. So they don't want to compromise on these at all. So number one is the complete withdrawal of the proposed extradition bill. Number two, they want the government to kind of reclassify what's been going on. So they don't want the government to be using the word riot, because I think if they do that, they can like arrest many of these people. Number three is they want the unconditional release of arrested protesters and all the charges dropped. Number four, they want an independent inquiry into police behavior, including the beatings and the. Remember, they had the incident where there were suspected triads that were hired by Chinese goons, or Chinese goons that were like beating protesters. Do you remember that? Late July.
yeah, and my friend from Hong Kong who didn't. I mean, he cites faults with both mainland and Hong Kong, but he has stated that yeah, he totally believes that mainland China is hiring the triad, which is essentially the Chinese gang, to beat protesters,
Yeah, I mean,
fight them.
yeah, it's crazy. I saw this guy, he got his head bashed in, he was bleeding. He was alive, but it was crazy. And then number five, so they want universal suffrage and like the right to vote, for everyone, to have free and fair elections, basically. So those are the five demands. Um, but yeah, it's just, it's pretty, I don't think these demands will be met, to be honest. So I don't know who's going to break first.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're pissing off other people because they're protesting in the airport, and People are like, "Whoa, I'm trying to catch my
Mm.
flight, like get out the way," but they're blocking gates. I mean, John Oliver had a segment where they showed like some New Zealand guy or some Australian dude, some Australian bloke. He was on there trying to get his gate. Well,
Fucking cunt.
we're definitely gonna have explicit for this episode as well. Uh,
Yeah. What do you mean, Senator? Mansplaining?
you wanna tell listeners what you're
What's
talking about there?
mansplaining? No, no.
And we
We're
can't, you
getting off
can't, you
track.
can't
We'll talk
introduce a
about it later.
meme and
We'll talk about it later. Talk about this. Continue. Just continue.
Senator. No, yeah. So it's something I disagreed with John Oliver about is, I definitely think that I don't know how many, I'm sure a fair amount of these protesters are legitimate protesters, but he was saying that there's allegations that the CIA is involved. And I think if you're someone that thinks that the CIA has no involvement in this whatsoever, you're absolutely out of your fucking mind. Because without a doubt, there are countries outside of China absolutely 100% involved some way.
I mean, do you have any evidence of that? I've never heard. What do you mean? Why do you think they were CIA's involved?
I mean, you have countries that are naturally against the Chinese government. And if there's some sort of protest that's fighting the Chinese government, surely there would be some sort of interest into helping these protesters. And again, I'm not saying that this protest was organized by a foreign government, and I'm not saying a majority of the protesters were hired by a foreign government. But to say absolutely there is a 0% chance that no foreign government is offering any aid to the protesters at all, I think that's as ignorant as saying that there's
Oh
no
yeah.
harm of China having this rule in the first place because they're not going to abuse it. Like, of course, mainland China is going to abuse this. Of course, the mainland China is going to abuse this law, and of course, there are governments that are against the Chinese government that are in some way offering
maybe,
some sort of assistance. Like it just,
maybe. Yeah, I do agree. I think America. America has a history of. I haven't seen any evidence to what you're saying. I mean, it could be possible. It's entirely possible. But I think that every country, is involved in some way. America is definitely not a an angel. I mean, we're doing shit too. We've seen there's plenty of examples of our failed foreign policy of trying to go in and uh, do shit in other people's countries, Central South America, the Middle East, Vietnam. I mean, the list goes on and on. Korea, like it's just how many people have we tried to get Yemen, or what is it? Not Yemen, maybe Libya. Sorry, Libya, Syria. It's crazy. Like we've gone in and tried to do shit, and then it doesn't work, and it's failed every time. So,
well, essentially
um,
and I don't want to go off on another trail, but when South Korea had a dictatorship, the U.S. government, in order to maintain stability in the region, it's a fact that they supported that dictatorship. So, I mean, there's no hard evidence at the moment that the CIA is directly giving money or supplies to the protesters, but to say that that's not even a possibility is, I think, even more ignorant than saying that mainland China is not going to abuse this law, which I totally think that they will, because allegedly the extradition is only meant for violent crimes or whatnot. It's not going to be for people that are not for political criminals against the mainland politicians or whatnot. They say, oh, don't worry about it. We're just focused on violent crimes. I think that's a load of BS, but the buddy that I interviewed, he says that he knows somebody in the police department that allegedly has evidence that the police know that around June 12th, which is when the protest started, a foreigner Not foreigner being anyone not from Hong Kong, not to say that they're not Asian, suspected to be from Southeast Asia, has been giving equipment to the protesters, such as these umbrellas or these gas masks or laser pointers.
Yeah, I saw. Did you see the video? There was a video where they showed like this pretty sophisticated, like like supply chain that they had set up on the street where they were handing out like they literally had like a depot area where they had different things like gas masks, like just I think I don't know umbrellas, cloths like towels for the different things like for covering your face, for wiping off like tear gas or some shit. They had all this kind of stuff in like an assembly line where they were just passing it down to like protesters who needed it. It was pretty crazy how efficient it was. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you might be right. They may be you know actors, bad actors in there. Why don't we talk about um, back to China and their behavior in the region, in Hong Kong, the things that they've been doing there? Why don't we talk about Mr. Lam Wing Ki? So Mr. Lam Wing Ki is a manager of a bookstore in Hong Kong, and there have been several. This has happened to at least 4 or 5 people that I've heard about. Several abductions in Hong Kong, right?
Okay, tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I mean, this guy Lam Wing Ki, I didn't know the name, but so he was a manager of a bookstore, right? And he sold bookstore books that had scandals that were about scandals related to the mainland Communist Party's leadership. And as we know, like all these guys, they go on stage and they put up like this image of being like righteous and clean and all
Wholesome.
about the people and wholesome and all this. But they're all of them are like fucking banging trannies and doing all sorts of like
Trannies.
just deplorable. I mean, I'm telling you, dude. You think these guys? They are nasty. They
Transsexual?
are nasty. Yes, they are nasty. I'm telling you.
These are nasty. I can just imagine Trump. These are nasty
No, no, not
individuals.
not the transsexuals. I mean, you want to be transsexual, that's fine, but like these guys, I only think that way. I only say that because it's like they put up this front, and but like I believe this. I believe Lam Wing Ki's books, these scandals where, so for example, I heard he wrote about some things that the president had done. Was it Xi Jinping himself had done? Um,
Xi Jinping is that. I mean, yeah. I mean, to be fair,
we're probably going
let's
to be kidnapped and disappeared.
yeah. So if you don't hear episode 3, you're gonna want to report. Send a report
To the U.S. State
police,
Department that we have been
but
kidnapped.
also make sure to message us on hashtag Benny Neal at
Yes,
Benny Neal
send our message out to everyone.
to to make sure that we're safe
Support the
and
channel. All right.
there be silence. Yeah, I mean, you're the most powerful guy in China, and I mean, I would be ignorant to say that China didn't have millions of beautiful women. If you're in a position of power as a male, where you're the most powerful man in the country, full of millions of beautiful women, you'd have to be pretty straight edge not to take advantage of that situation.
He's definitely doing the nasties, and he's probably into that kinky shit too. Like how like they have that stereotype where men of power, they just want to be like dominated and just like because they're always in power, right? They're always like everyone's coming to them for the answers and stuff. Like then when they get in like a sexual situation, they just want to be like dominated and whipped and all that. And he's probably into that. What is that toy called with like the leather strap around the head and the ball in the mouth? That ball
I
in the
don't know,
mouth.
but you're exciting me a little too much. I
Yeah.
gotta.
Ugh. All right. Anyway, back to
Oh,
that.
God, just to
Ugh.
be supreme leader for a day.
Genghis Khan, man. Genghis Khan had, man, he was a terrible man, but just imagine being Genghis Khan. So he got to do whatever he wants.
What do you do?
So that's nice.
What are you wrapping up over there?
Nothing. Continue. Continue.
There have also been allegations of China doing something. Apparently, a billionaire, which
Mm.
who originally was from mainland but had lived for Hong Kong for a while, was abducted in January 2017. Um, he had financial ties with some of the mainland's most powerful families. He was taken by Chinese police from his apartment at the Four Seasons in Hong Kong. When asked about it, the Hong Kong police issued a statement saying that, quote, the subject had entered mainland China through a border crossing on the previous week, but they abducted his ass for sure.
Probably. I mean, wait, this was the billionaire?
Yeah, the billionaire, and there was allegations that they were trying to make him give the government dirt about other people, and there's a whole backstory about how he was involved in Xi Jinping's, like, some relative of Xi Jinping's stocks or whatnot. God only knows how far this rabbit hole goes, but
Yeah, I mean,
if you're in a position where you have dirt or you're upsetting mainland's government, then your days are numbered. They're going to get you, and that's kind of the even though they're kind of doing it anyway, regardless, if they have that extradition bill available, then they can get you on whatever they want. Like, it's kind of like the broken tail light. Like,
mm,
oh, you broken tail light, pull them over.
mm.
Well, oh, this person evaded tax. Oh, this person did this. Even if it's just, I think all they need is the allegation, and once they have the allegation, that's enough to reel you in. And once you're in, once you set foot in mainland, then you're gone.
Yeah,
Like, you will
I don't even. I mean, I wanted to visit China. I'm kind of fascinated with their history. I mean, they're just such a
totally.
great land, but I kind of am like afraid to go there because I don't know. I just feel like they're going to. I'll probably be disappeared. But then again, I'm not. I'm nobody, right? So maybe not. But
Not after you made this
yeah,
podcast.
they're probably going to listen to this. But
Like,
then they have that. I mean, that like that's what I was saying earlier when I was talking about why Hong Kong wanted to stay separate as long as possible. And it's like China, they have this incredible police state, and like everyone's taking photos everywhere. Japan has tons of cameras too. Um, but yeah. So anyway, so we've seen the protests. We've seen things happening from airlines like Cathay Pacific, for example, had flight attendants that were refusing to fly. Right? Weren't they refusing to fly to mainland China? And I heard the Chinese government wanted the names of those that protested, probably to assassinate them. Because
I don't know
why
about,
else?
not maybe not assassinate,
What,
but
what else would they want them for? Who would even fucking give them milk?
arrest.
They're not. I
Because
mean,
I don't know if they're going to assassinate the protesters, unless they had that much.
it's only
Unless
a
it
matter
was
of time. We didn't even talk about how there was video of convoys of trucks of military vehicles with soldiers, presumably coming from Shenzhen, which is about 25 kilometers from the Hong Kong island. So, I mean, they are amassing troops on the border, and it's only a matter of time before we have another Tiananmen Square, which. It's kind of a failure on our part in this episode because we didn't even talk about Tiananmen Square, which is insane. Basically, an event where I think there was a protest for democracy in the 80s, and the Chinese government literally ran over, killed hundreds, some say thousands of student protesters. And as we did discuss, history seems to repeat itself. So, what's to say this can't happen again? And a lot of people online are like, oh, the whole world's watching, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds great, but China doesn't really give a shit, right? They didn't care in the 80s. They're even more powerful now. They will do this, and they have the capability to possibly, smother the story and make sure that it doesn't even come out. So, I mean,
yes and no. I feel like, although they are capable of doing it, the times are different. Like, with social media and live streaming and just kind of like that instant transfer of data, which didn't really exist back in '89 think it was '89 when the Tiananmen Square incident happened. Like,
Yeah, but who's going to do something about it? What would anyone do?
I think Western nations would stand up and say like we're gonna no longer do business. I mean, they're
I don't know, man. People, you saw what they did with Khashoggi. Like Khashoggi, Saudi Arabia, dude was killed. Everyone was on like, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible, and then 2 months later we're back to normal. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, but I mean I mean to be fair, the Middle East doesn't have the same stand like the involvement the Middle East has and the knowledge the Western world has on the Middle East is just kebabs, terrorism, the Taliban, oil.
yeah.
Like there's some shit going on in the Middle East. Okay, this dictator was killed. Okay, we're moving on. But to say and Khashoggi was a dictator.
No, he
Oh
wasn't.
no
What
no no,
the
we're talking
hell?
about sorry, I'm
Khashoggi.
okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. I was thinking about the fool in Lebanon that was assassinated, the
Libya,
dictator.
Gaddafi.
Yeah, Gaddafi. Sorry,
No, no.
Khashoggi. I mean, potato,
He was
right?
a journalist.
Khashoggi. Khashoggi was a journalist. We're still talking about the Middle East. We're talking about one guy,
Yeah, one guy. I mean, and look,
and not to say that one life doesn't matter, but we're not talking about hundreds and thousands of protests in Hong Kong, which I think Westerners are more.
I mean, and I mean, again, this, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but just these people in Hong Kong, they're fighting back valiantly. But look at where we were last year, right? Last year, this wasn't even on the radar. So, just as a side note, like, I mean, we may talk about it later, but I think in America we definitely have a problem with mass shootings, but this is why we have the Second Amendment, guys. You know, we see people we don't talk about it in Asia. There are no guns really, but people are, oh, why are you afraid that the government's going to do some shit? How was Hong Kong 6 months ago? And now look where we are. We're devolving into chaos. Literally, the island has millions of people protesting. Society is grinding to a halt, and this is why, because that's how quickly things can change. And now these people. What if China decides to invade? What if China decides to do something? What are these people going to do? Fight back with rocks? They'll be slaughtered. And so, I mean, even though they still probably wouldn't have a chance, even if they had more weapons or could arm themselves, like at least they would have it'd be better than rocks, right? So, but but then I guess you could say that would be
Laser pointers.
yeah, they have laser pointers. But I mean, but then again, just being my own devil's advocate, you could say that by being armed, that would give China just carte blanche to just slaughter everyone because then they could say it was a civil war and we were being attacked. So, but anyway, I'm digressing. But yeah, I mean, there was a story that came out that the CEO of Cathay Pacific refused to give the list of names of the people who participated in the protest, but I heard that was fake. I heard that was debunked recently.
Well, what is true is that two pilots, the guy I interviewed, he had said fired. I saw a news article online that pretty much said they were forced to resign. Again, essentially the same thing there, but they yeah, they had participated with the protest. And the thing is, with a lot of these businesses, they rely so much on Chinese business that they're not going to put up with this. If it comes to losing their main source of finance or the main source of money and income, they're gonna easily let go of employees. So two Cathay Pacific pilots, they were let go. I interviewed another buddy who is Korean but working in the financial district in Hong Kong, and he had mentioned that his friend who works for a mainland bank, they were asked to, if anyone was absent on any of the protests, to write down their names and to keep record of that.
What if
So
you were sick? That's terrible. You,
you got to go in.
you
If you have Ebola, then your ass is going to work that day. You're bleeding out of your asshole,
bleeding
then
out of
you're
your
fucking going
eyeballs.
to. You should. So, I mean, you'd be in for a worse fate, I'd imagine,
Yeah, yeah.
had you been on that list.
Mm.
So it's I mean I hope things they've been I mean we didn't even things are allegedly peaceful. I mean the police are shooting tear gas and pepper spray. The one interesting thing is this is kind of like the Antifa thing on the U.S. Like a lot of the people on Antifa, which is supposed to stand for anti-fascist, are supposed to be the ones standing up to Trump, the ones standing up for freedom and whatnot and diversity. They're going around bashing people in the head, and
Those
they're
bike
they're
locks.
essentially they're essentially a terrorist organization themselves. I don't think the Hong Kong protesters have gotten to that point yet, but I meant the Hong Kong protesters they did break into the legislative building in Hong Kong. They did trespass, break down the glass windows or doors, and they broke a lot of computers
There's
and
an element. There's an element
did a lot of
that is getting
graffiti.
violent. Yeah.
And the Hong Kong protesters said that they were forced to do that by the government, but even my friend, who seems to be, pretty in the middle, maybe leaning more towards the sympathy of the protesters, he was saying, like, no, these people need to be brought to justice because at the end of the day, they did, they committed a crime and they shouldn't
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's fair
be
that
let off.
those people should definitely. Those people should definitely, I think, be prosecuted. You shouldn't be looting or and breaking things just because you're rioting. I heard it wasn't that bad though. Like, I mean, if this type of stuff was happening in America, I think we should just be clear that there would definitely 100% be looting. We would have people, acting a fool, and the protest would be quelled immediately, probably by the National Guard because of those people. So, I mean, I think generally Hong Kong has been very peaceful. I've even seen video of them, removing barriers for emergency vehicles and things like that before putting them back, to stop the police. So they're very considerate people so far. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks. Hopefully things go better. But again, I don't know what the end game is. 2047 is coming. Time cannot stop. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it seems like, man, even though China shouldn't have done anything until 2047, there, it's kind of like they're just you're reining it in early, which I guess makes sense if it just suddenly went from pretty democratic to, you know, China style semi
Dictator Xi.
dictatorship, then that wouldn't make sense. So it's got to be a slow process. But I could totally understand how the Hong Kong people, from a lot of them growing up relatively free, having these laws put in place where they can't say they want what they want to say, they can't vote who they want to vote for. They just are simply upset. So I mean, it's rough. I hope that it doesn't get become violent, but I don't see any plausible outcome. I don't think China's gonna just be like, you know what, we tried, but
No, they
it's just
won't.
not going
They
to work
won't.
out. We're like, yeah, okay, okay. Hong Kong will be its own entity, and I think that this will just be stage one. Once they reel in Hong Kong, it's only a matter of time before they go after Taiwan. And I love Taiwan. Taiwan's a amazing country. They're very easygoing people. They have many beautiful women. It's a wonderful
It's
country,
always
and
about the women with you. Terrible, terrible, terrible. No, it's about the
yes,
women.
no,
Anyway,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Hashtag
anyway,
just saying. Hashtag Betty and Neil at Betty and Neil Twitter and
look
Minds.
for us. Look for us on Minds and Twitter, and we will be back next time
Are we
with.
wrapping up?
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna take a shower. We're gonna be wrapping up, and we'll talk to you next time. We'll have another interesting topic. Uh,
I think of the first two topics were pretty serious. I think we're gonna have a non-political, more maybe some cultural difference, aspect of cultural difference, or something that's not so
we should talk
political next
about
time. Because
something.
this is a comedy
We should talk.
podcast after all, with elements of
Maybe
truth.
we could talk about less. We could talk about less heavy things. Also, maybe. maybe speak to some of the listeners out there who want to move to Asia. So I know many of you, I've talked to many people that are looking for ways to exit the West. It's not for everyone. Everyone's not capable of
Ooh,
doing it. Everyone's
ooh.
not capable of doing it. Just keeping it real. Everyone's not of them. It's not for everyone, and that's fine. But for those who, the bold, the daring, um, we can have a conversation, talk a little bit about that sometime in the future as well. All right, so I think that's it.
All right,
All right,
until next time, this is Benny Neal. You can find us on Twitter at Benny Neal.
mine's all
Leave us,
right.
we're gonna make that by the time this episode is released. We should have that account, and you can message us hashtag Benny Neal. Until next time, enjoy.